At first, thank you for joining today, LiPS, and we are glad to host Dan Pitera, who is the Dean of the School of Architecture and Community Development at the University of Detroit Mercy. My name is Rossella Ferro, and I'm a PhD student here at Columbia Urban Planning Program. I will be moderating the session along with Daniela Perlesce, who is the co-organizer of this series. I am truly super excited to introduce this lecture because I came across Dan Pitera's work in my early days as a student in urban planning more than 10 years ago. So it's very emotional for me. It's a kind of myth for my personal mission. It was during a planning studio on a deindustrialized area in the outskirts of Milan. My group and I were interested in some ideas, but we couldn't find any references for this work until when a professor suddenly suggested to look at Dan's project in Detroit, and that was very a foundational moment and trajectory. So I'm super emotional today. We will discuss implication between urbanist planning and social impact through the lens of shaping change centers. And we will discover with Dan a little bit better what these centers are. Using Detroit as a case study, the presentation will illustrate the processes activated by our guest speaker and collaborators that include more people, more programs, and more geographies as a way to reposition our disciplines as an inherently activist endeavor. Some brief logistical announcement before introducing our speaker. After the presentation, around 2:15 p.m., we will have time for Q&A. I will be coordinating the Q&A with attention to diversity and inclusion. So if you have already had a chance to ask a question, please allow others to do so before asking another one. And we are recording today's lecture, so please remember this if you do not wish to be recorded. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker. Dan Pitera is a social and political activist masquerading as an architect. Dean Pitera has practiced, taught, and researched methods focused on the social, ecological, equitable, and political aspects of designing and realizing thoughtful architecture and urban design for all people. He was executive director of the Detroit Collaborative Design Center, and under his direction, DCDC was honored with an incredible series of awards and prizes, and was also included in the US Pavilion at the Biennale of Venice in 2025, 2012, and 2008. Please join me in welcoming Professor Dan Pitera.
Well, imagine Uncle Fester.
If heaven ain't a lot like Detroit, I don't wanna go. If heaven ain't a lot like Detroit, I just as soon stay home. If they ain't got no 8 Mile like.
First, want to thank Daniela for having me to be here and all the work they did to get me organized to be here. Thank you so much. So today we're going to essentially talk about two things. I like to say underpinnings. These are kind of the things that guide and drive everything that I do, but I think that's really how our discipline, saying disciplines now, the planning, architecture, urbanism, landscape architecture, all of sort of that kind of work should guide us in both the education of them and the practice, because I don't see that as separate. I'll talk about that in a moment. Then I am going to do what I like to think of as a reflective inquiry of the work that we've done in the city of Detroit. I actually haven't done this before in this way. It was the way the request came for me is to going to show projects that I haven't necessarily shown in a while. That's pretty frequent. So it isn't really about projects, though I'm going to show a few. Really, it's about thinking about bigger issues and how they landed on the ground. All centered on city work that I've done around all over the country and the world, but I'm focused on the city. I like to diagram everything. This is a diagram of the lecture. So these blue squares and blue and gray squares are some main points, so they won't show up that way. And this is me. I wander, I tell stories, I move through, and I hope that at the end of this will be something that you will take away. I don't have plenty of takeaways along the talk, and then you will, and there are actually closing observations that I will make. But ultimately, it also with you to take away, but you based on shaping change, and as I'll say later, I do have a tendency to fall to reading hard moments while statements I like to call them homework card or something like that. And this is probably one of them, is that change is going to happen whether we do anything about it or not. One constant in the world. What I mean when I say shaping change in the title is that it's meaningful. What does it mean to truly meaningful for a variety of people? So we think all lectures should start with the fine print, and I have 3 or 4 fine prints here. They kind of are listed as plainers. The first are triggers and intentions, or it will be a couple things that I probably will talk about. Most of you, I know, some of you will come up and say, that is triggering, it didn't bother me at all. Maybe not for you, but for some other people. The things I'll talk about may be a trigger, and you will not mind at all if you decide to leave, or maybe use that as an opportunity to leave, that's fine. But it is something I just want to let you know that the triggers are truly intentioned. Why? Especially when we're talking about the city. Someone. Okay. First is a sort of trigger, but next fine print. As I address you, I know that many of you will agree this work while you're sitting in a room, but many may not. And that's the nature of being in the academy. I told the state world to about the academy in early ways, because this is why it's essential to have the academy, to have a collective method of inquiry. And I welcome further conversation, whether it is in support of or in contradiction to what I'm presenting. I welcome that. To me, that's why we're here. We'll get personal now and then to make a point or two. I'll just let you know that is a part of how I like to. Frankly, being here, you know all this. And the editors in the room, you already know. So my hope is that maybe I'm providing things for you to make it a little differently, or maybe plug or shift or just wanted to start with that last one because I'm not presenting this like I mean the knowledge is great. Ideas that governance work and help working with them all together created responses that we can predict. So given the way I just said where meaningful change comes. Freud is our future statement. I know, I really do believe, as we think about the work that we've done and where we're going, where we should be going, Detroit is our future. It is not just about the things we've designed, it's not the what. It's really about this city government, not just the city, but as a group of people. That process, what are the implications of that? I'm not going to draw in 50 minutes, I'm not going to draw all those things. So we really define it lies in the who, the where, and the how. We educate, don't divide those two as one, but I have to, because those people think of them, I have to say both, even though I think about a discipline whole there. So that is why, so it being the future does not in the what it designed there. So in Detroit, we work with, this is different than civic engagement, we can talk about that afterwards. Like community development, community-based action, and community creation. Key word there, community. It's not just process, as I alluded to when I talk about the process, it's about people and process. This is what makes it so perfect to be thinking about. Ultimately, my goal would be is how do we define not just equitable and ecological, I mean, something to have ecological and quality. This is where I talk about it. I truly see them as two halves as one whole. Wish I wouldn't say this, but when we talk about planning, when we talk about architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, we often talk about them as separate. Or we'll talk about one as being a footnote to the other. One is not a footnote to the other. They both are real world conditions. Some of you may have heard this phrase said to you, wait till you get to the real world. I would argue that the PhD students particularly say, wait a minute, I don't have to wait to the world. We're in it now because it is the work that you're doing here as masters, early and PhD students together is thinking about the future architecture. Ultimately, all of this create research-based critical thinkers that are value critical. You want to make meaningful change, you need to have value. Values. I use it relationship to the work in the city. These spaces mean nothing. Words underutilized. Think full first, doing whatever, or landscape, plazas, buildings, whatever. People are essential. Again, nothing new. I like to think about this as the mosaic, because we do live in a society and culture that sets up the individual counter community. In that part of the community, you lose your individualism. So mosaic brings them both together. Think about a mosaic. Individual each has its own identity, from color, size, and creates a larger picture. If they look at the first thing can be individual, while still being a part of the bigger community. I would like to make a sort of an example of this. This is from the Henry Ford collection. It is a graduation ceremony from, say on the other side, Henry Ford School. What you're seeing up here is a person who is dressed culture they come from. Here, have a bunch of white guys like me in this. Okay? Go into this, take off the clothes they're wearing, they put on this wonderful fedora, the student tie because it was all male, and waving the American flag. That's the graduation ceremony for a school. This is helping pop. Without thinking about those words. Helping pop creates wow. So our symbols, it's a bit against that. The mosaic is about that colorful composition where individuality. Anyone here from Canada? Mosaic is your symbol, the melting, right? It's it all. So, different way of approaching than approaching that. Where I get a little personal. When you're thinking about that erasure, if you will, talking about different communities and different identities. And so I feel that talking today in the way I've already and talked about myself as a white male, one of those people who's sort of that hot, but the context that I'm speaking. The privilege of considering my family as the main, so people who grew up in extreme financial poverty were culturally and socially rich. If you're poor doesn't mean you don't. And socially rich. So I could go bowling, and in a different lecture, I'm going to talk to you about the bowling alley in the 70s and 80s. No public space. Different. Grew up in an all-female family. See people, it's a kinship with people who speak, travel, the form of wealth. Have a kinship with people who nearly every Harry Potter book who understands though they cannot control that they are white males, they can control how they wield their privilege and power. Love New York style. I'm from Pitera, New York style pizza. First thing I did when I got in last night, and get someone else Philadelphia cheesecake with them. So Philly and sort of like so have a kinship with people who have an understanding that when you are at, who you ride, doesn't mean a bicycle, it means a motorcycle. That leads to the last one. I have a kinship with people who see the book and in the art of motorcycle maintenance. And earlier, I recognize that's how guides and drives me. But there, many other things part of who we are. We carry with us, all of us, carry with us any identity. Unfortunately, really in the context we currently are in our country, identity groups require allegiance. Clarity, nothing. We're going to have we have a society still that has a mosaic of community, and we need a mosaic of people. Community. This is one of those being car moments that was a true mix of cultures working on projects cannot be predicted. In mind, hey, this group is looking at or saying that like moments with our students or they are inspiring places for non-traditional faith. It is something that is up for and it is what the house is for. All is nurture and develop the people engaged in. Access to design in both product and process. One thing to say, well, this space is open to everyone. But they are but that space. It's part of not just giving feedback for that space, but actually what that space should be. But why not? Because this is our economic pyramid. 1% and everyone else. Frankly, this is our design pyramid. Well, this is the design system of it that I like to diagram everything. All of us people in this room who can't wait to work for that 1% and all dying for that. And very few of us who are working. Frankly, planners, you come with a thought process that things are clear. So I thank you for bringing that to everybody. I'm not blind. I don't think this is going to ever be flipping this over. I see this as a as hopefully being more of a most of my career has been focused working only with understanding that well-designed spaces do everything that I mean we are for all people. That is the now we're moving. Sure. Sorry. That works. Climate justice, not got way back, you don't be open during your discussion. It's going to be hard to convince me. So we'll say that now. But the two together are inextricable. We are directly connected to climate migration. We're already seeing that in particular in Michigan because of all greatly. Strive for, and the work strive for a better symbiotic relation. Team building environment. Frankly, I want to make sure all for symbiotic relationship relates to this. How do we read that connection of statement to culture, local culture? So I can tell you the number of universities, the number of people who come in Detroit has a lot and work. You are listening. You believe that whether you consider your designer or not, you should stand thinking about building. But of course, your designers here, so you are thinking about building, you're thinking about the bigger, wider space, and that's important because things are important. I say this because I hear this all the time about me. So, finding who we are. Creative problem. I think that's really undermined. Makes it tactical. What we really can do is to connect the dots. People either miss or he can create that synthesis. Reading card moment. I'm just thinking about building. Now, process is where we start talking. Where we're defining the process. A little bit about 2 minutes about Detroit City, which is a planning process done over 10 years ago for the city of Detroit. And this is where we're doing. Didn't just design the process, we designed about people. Essentially, talk about a mosaic, variety then you have to understand that if you have a mosaic, you need a mosaic to engage with. Not everyone wants to enter the process in the same way. Frankly, or some people in this room might be saying, frankly, not everyone has the privilege to enter the process. So can we engage people in a way that is so much more than thinking about them again as unity running the work? I'm not going to invest in full, so I'm not going to spend time on it. I'm just going to show a couple things. This was the book that was released, Detroit Future City. I'm going to send a link to the, I heard it's no longer online. I can send a link to all the chapters in here. So all the people that worked on it, Tony Griffin's off to the side, because she and I directed the work together. So she ran the technical team, I ran civic engagement, and together, this was the first time we've known each other for years, just kind of put together. We worked on 3 projects. It's again, all the people that were part of me. Things that's different is that it's not just master plan that looks at land and zoning. That is, here's the land use and a bit about land and building assets, but it looks at economic growth for city systems, all of this together. And the book, at the day it was launched, what I want to show is this. 1 year, in November 2011, November 2000, for all the different tactics we did to engage people in the city. 27 of them here, plus or minus. When you hear like, community meeting, that's this, and it's all the rest are other things. All history there with community, playing the history of themselves, the neighborhood they knew. Okay, so one thing that I want to illustrate is what's called the roaming case. And it's now in the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian, the permanent collection. This is it, this thing here. It literally roamed around the city, stayed in front of one place for this is, I took this picture, this was Crosby and I worked together on this. Years, starting 2000. We started working together. He's the one talking there. I'm taking the picture. The table would just sit in front of a bus stop, sit in front of a place 3 to 4 hours. We met with fashion 6,000 zones. We met 20,000 Detroiters. Difference here is we want to be a part of their life versus asking them. Enough. Their lives. So how do we interrupt to become part of their lives? So this table would be we were Detroiters for a barbecue place, and there's Charles. I actually remember what it is, but it was cold outside, rain, so I went inside. In case you're wondering, that is me, so I'm not always taking the pictures. I am out there. Being a director and being there doing it, also send them. Another project that I want to illustrate is how do we think differently about bringing people into the discussion and having them lead the discussion. Thinking about noun versus verb. The noun is a stair. You know that. Verb is ascending and descending. I ask you to think about a stair. Everyone in this room will think about different things, but thinking descending widens up. So when we're in the wrong table, talking to people about makes great. About the assets that are paid, but about This is us, there's me again, walking around the community. We're designing here is what we all know as graffiti art gallery, but it is, they like to call it a assault art. The kind of baggage that comes with the word. Why I'm showing this project is because we intentionally challenge the spatial authority. Person that I think that if you're interested in this, I'm referring to a lot of my work draws from this. Currently at Michigan State, he was in Ohio State, that where he investigates the cultural and ethnic appropriation. In short, you might say that street is part of the dominant paradigm of white culture. So I think parade. So the way of, if you will, taking one's ground, taking a stand, test all into it. Actually, taking ownership of a place, person or community of people marginalized. This gentleman right here is tagging her around all markers and project whole alleyway, all the alley project came then turned into side southwest. It runs this whole alley. All the garages are also recommends the step up a relationship that we started working with the organization in years. This project means that we don't just with a working with them in have them understand how they can appropriate. They began to build the trust of all that were around them. We were part of doing that. The PE and that, so just make sure it's clear, the center does have foundation funding. We're able to do that. We illustrate that those sort of people that you might call clients had I start mentioning the garages or exhibition. All the garages have a piece of graffiti art that's really cute. Training area that I'm going to show in a second, and then this is what's in the Venice Biennale right now, which is a organized training. Built this all out here out of material and whatnot. It's also got here is that community space that I mentioned. We started working on this in around 2015 or so. It was it became really sort of started construction in 2018, finished Detroit is it's called Mexican area, but it's really all Central America. So I'm constantly working with them to try to change that moniker. But originally, this was a warehouse that made mariachi tunes, and so they were instrumental in working with the building this organ. But work with How the light shadow the space. See how you can see all through it. It was a solid brick. And when it's snowing. So far, most of what I've been talking to, from a table, verbs, nouns, or participation, that is the people great, but oh, want to enter the process in the planning part of the process. They may want to be a part of. They also may want to be a part of. Or this is easy, you know, we don't need to make light of it, but we know many processes. But there's things to begin to think about. How do we? There's some creative ways that we use to think about this. One of them, really old now, but what we've been known for is the gorilla insertion in burned houses in the city of Detroit. We consider were to be organized. This was our idea going in. Got to be houses. What it is about is how do we begin to have people in a community, especially in a community that like they don't belong, a whole community. Like, how do you make sure you get? So it's said a couple times the phrase was burned out. There were at this time in early 2000s, there were 8,000 to 10,000 burned houses. That was actually there were about 15,000 per city. First, we had to remove the phrase burned. We had to think about it as under. Because frankly, burned house is just a blank landscape. Or round, you really walk by any. And moment where they put. Got it off. I do want to be clear that we should always understand the context we're in. This project during the or wherever, it's understanding the context. So, should be concerned with the built environment and not just with building. Say that because what most people were trying to do and why building. There was this between full renovation and demolition. Renovation made no financial. Made no financial sense. Blue houses, city government, set up and said, nope, we're going to demolish them all. We've been seeing that there's the space in between. You can structure them in creative ways. Just racing. A few that I'm going to show. We did about a dozen of these, then we moved in. Just to illustrate the creative way, turning them into a piece of fiction art that celebrated the work that was happening. So a group of farmers on Farnsworth on the east side, whole block was filled with homes that were living on it. Like, so this is the first one that we did. We were approached, and by then, what could we do to make a difference? So we said, well, can we just think of this as alfalfa thing? We created visions of it. These were 5 and they were we created thousand nails. Essentially, those who are sort of sick in the room, you really turn to burn. Or what it did was bring it. There's no way that this could be really the initial ones to illustrate the same street. We covered all the windows of a house, but it was orange fabric. Then fabric, they both and they played. So when we would go back, they said, just create the music. And it, you know, these are just a few of them. But so yeah, say that but change. See the this is the front makes it look like, oh, it's random. All it was left. That front stop. And it really was just we covered one side of a house with liquid latex glove, not latex. So the movie's on for a whole summer. And we peeled it back when it did it. Hey, created this. It all up. We got all in. There's one house with the top and bottom with our fabric. It should be then it turned out that it went through. So the last image. The help illustrate how you turn some of this in. But now, key thing is how do you do something that's permanent? Those are fine, but they're still just like even though it's done with people, it's still creating a fetish out. How do we turn it into something that's more permanent? Was the house next to the Heidelberg project, for those who know, it's an installation artist that was there as well, Frank Denton, put a few things together. He had labeled this, but this house was outside. This was for a period of time considered the forest system. About 350,000 at the time. 4,000 to turn it into, you take the sidewall on. Because it's real wood, it's not, you save all the wood. Here's a series of garage door opener things. For the slide, some that open up, and you create a band shell. You just strip it of all its infrastructure, so there's really only a little bit of electricity. Plumbing, you don't need that. You create a band shell. Vacant lots that are next door become. This was a building at a different scale that community loved. So this illustrates also some things I'm happy to talk about afterwards, but they didn't want to tear it down, but it meant too much to the community. Trying to illustrate that was the landscape architecture, and then I'm work on the building, illustrate, okay, it's a building untouched. Just an image of what if the building became a building, take everything out, you allow it to still exist. Bringing in the graffiti artists from Southwest Current, they can do some graffiti art as well. They can create it. If they wanted a low budget model, the competition from out to feed in and allow people up, and began to say that no, they should have a full recreation center. Funding in regards for that. So what ended up happening is what they got was this. This was the plan. We were able to convince them to salvage some of the material from that building, and in that's where the building was, and create a sledding hill. So a lot of the metal, some of the wood was stayed. Was at the time when people would see, and I'm happy to talk about this, when communities are showing power, then they say that, wow, but if there's not enough, there's us was I'm office asking that important them understand. Last thing I'm going to show. That's often used by the director at the time, and I, Wisconsin, I was in Detroit for a while, but worked on this project again. Changed to the title mixtape, which we can talk about because it is about mixtape. So zoning is the scale, if you will, mixtape is zoning. How do we lead by using? We think about design that really believe this is something that rarely happens, and it illustrated power that we hold, whether we're planners, designers, landscape architecture. Actually reevaluated all the zoning restrictions through the lens. Did that? What do I mean? And I diagram of design. When someone enters the design process, that's really the middle. Policy is already set. Development will happen afterwards, and many times these things influence design way more than we want them to, because we keep ourselves here. We need to be thinking about the whole process, just this. So that means designers need to be really working in policy to think, maybe attorney have to connect all three of these. In zoning or mixtape does it the way that we said there are three types built environment. We're going to give those areas two design groups. Each area had two design groups. We're going to work with the community to design what this will be. So this area was, anyone knows this is Algiers Theater. The area is mostly underdeveloped, except for Algiers Theater. It's still an iconic symbol for that area, icon asset. So the intention was we're going to look at what would be and be planning on the community, what would be needed. Drawing is just more, it's just a diagram that was essentially done to illustrate what could happen, change this, that, reorient to, there's the alter. Could happen. Looking at precedent. Ultimately, then we take that design, we look at the zoning restrictions, they, under all the restrictions, were not allowed that. Then these are the things that we. In this case, there was, which is a Detroit firm, FAR, those know FAR, and Lavu. These are the things that they figured out in their designs and so on. There were 9 some of those things that can be changed. Assuming some of the changes well from this. So think about that it's not the only things that were what phase from that the mind map we just went through. I have 4 closing statements that are just really statements. For closing observation. Talked about this a little bit at our coffee meeting. Engagement process should be the catalyst for design process. The design process, escape process, whatever. Process to validate what the design. We can't help ourselves, those that really think of themselves as designers, walking into a room, they get a project and they first start thinking about it. They start designing process. Well, yeah. To say, wait a minute, expertise. Being right. They work with and I decreasing something that begins to say that when it's not the engagement is hearing what people say and then you how they time. Doing an engagement process. Yeah. Big thing. Help you define what you already want. That's not really in the culture. We're going to grow. Another way of saying, right? But it's trying to think about it in a different way because interpretations people off. Right? Local culture is usually seen as influence. We'll move to a neighborhood because community members own that. And even in Detroit, it's so far away from having things that people great and somebody come in, well then that's a lot of work that's been happening at our university and seeing culture as an infrastructure to be versus seeing it as that's great for now. It's the real development, like the world. You're in the real world now. This is real development to be seen as this word. I don't say all about transparent. I was offering. Transparent by only. Like that, frustrating. Really move to an honest litigation. We are sharing. Feel compelled within the state that we're in. State, but that we're in. Education is not only about the. A lot of what's being discussed here has always been about the academic environment and the community as I was running university, and I think about it, community university, community based, community university. So bad is enough. It's also cultivating a spirit and resilience. A little bit.
Be done for this lecture.
Because I do believe it's part of the process. One of the tactics and a thing called the concept wasn't asked to be part of it. We began standing on tables, yelling, very yelling. It's so big. We really brought over very early on in that. If you want to say that, one of them, these two, I want to surround myself by community leaders all over the city. They're the ones really who are making the decisions of what we should be talking about. So when I showed this list, I had leaders. It were on the ground leaders around the city that I've known for many, many years. They were the ones that helped, really, not just help, they were part of the thinking of what the dialogue should be. So it's not Dan being enlightened how, or whatever you want to say, being enlightened. It's really the community that was doing it. And then, and they were paid to be taught them. The team was now hired as well. They were residents. Like many, there were people standing around the table who I think point out that were also street teams paid to be. We're also doing it. One of the things, I don't know how many were this, but we did the roaming thing. We also did a similar thing by just saying, anyone breed the great team thing. Good luck. I'll sit there and I'll talk with all of them. I love to know how often you engage the process, you engage. Turn myself in. It's being done, we paid the table. Being happy. Test leaders, the team, and the technical team of the other people like staff, big firm, progress. Part of the engagement, and I think with great, but yeah, then we need some more. We go back. Then the community say, wow, they're now asking questions back to me that come from the questions and comments that like, okay, yeah, we heard you, and then come back with questions that have nothing to do with what. One thing was everyone powers to be believe that community would want to have. Community would want to have everything. We all said, Asa and I said, community, any community is nice enough to know that's in have a corner store, but you may not have a hospital. There's distances you can that the community also is wide. They don't want to drive an hour to get. You have to drive. So we're finding some. So we create a very simple diagram with house here, then block, neighborhood, region of the city, region, the metro region. Then we gave a series of things and asked them to stop where they wanted. That was very early. Very simple. That diagram grew from these people, from us. That's pretty much a planning diagram. Where the programs occur. And they then what came out of that, and it was also, frankly, a trust building, not for the community, but for the leaders, the mayor and their staff, because they began to think, wow, the community, I never expected anything. Me. Really considered marginalized. What? Understand. Things that we come from various. Anymore, I have a tendency to. Yeah. Good moderator, I'm sorry. You probably got a hand go up before me. All right. Quite a few people working on. Say right now, given that dialogue. Currently, been around our university. So, you would, when that question, and when we did it, way more originally have run a so anyway, the leadership, business ownership, and look at business ownership. Business ownership, building business behind. Thinking about, I don't know that any business. See that we can acquire it. There's that are. You could give costs. To the. Fortunately, when I are good. Them for a home, when you next a home, so you they doesn't worry. Many things. Now, doing that. We'll probably say, I mean, interrupt you. Let me make sure it is not paid to say that I need to make that. Actually, I think first of all, our way. People. We began to say, don't need all of this. LiPS did a very clever thing for this. I just showed it to him thinking, built up. Which is a trailer. Really not your third one. From very, very like time. I mean, bigger scale. Way they work, but they built trust. Things in the beginning is that you notice when I pointed to this is April. It's in November. So doing community meetings right up. None of these things in there before. Big community meetings. You do this, you cut this later. Don't do the community. You do a lot of trust building on the ground. A group of advisors that come from the community that happen in Milwaukee. Thank you. You know that. Hard. Things are the this later, so it's not the tactics, it's philosophy that happens. He did that. This is one thing that we saw. It happened so late. I didn't know. At the end of town hall, I had call me. How that we got from this? Figure out. All these seniors. Back to the town. Now. All the senior centers. Oh. Yeah, just. More things, other things. Not relying will be the ones that. That's the person. Yeah. Or, and then other people spoke up. I mean, no, didn't talk to me. 3 months. This is start. Start working. Because we don't do someone that it's at the right time. Trying to get criticism. We weren't bringing how they wanted to be. Because if we didn't bring the team together, we're trying to. Okay. And they can't come together to come up with big ideas. So that it worked out perfectly. Well, the value. Really. I'm not sure how many people. That. For we're just for you to have really more per capita than most of she brought it to like go in. But never had this. Or what are the assets we have when you're in poverty? We use some else. But yeah, didn't go in. Well, boom, they were. about it. Who it was. I think that's different when then what happened was that board meeting. So then other people, not in zone. Other people began. All fun. All about a lot of. They were. All going. They. One thing that. Neighborhoods. So. Stay there. And they. They don't think. Giving a talk. Really wide scale. On the street. Just being big words. Instead of vacant. Vacant land. That. set it up. It has open. All this land that's not in. It goes in one spot, but. We have. Pretty. Get it all over. When I talk about political opportunity. Different. This. Being at the city. They get. Other awesome. Does that. You're not gonna do that for. Inverted T is this. Town. River. City. Pulling up. One way to answer your question, long way to go to there.
For yourself.
What happens when I don't eat? I didn't get a chance to grab the food, so I kind of got a little bit.
Now,
Was that okay? Was it 2 grams?
sorry.
Was that okay? No, good. No, we'll do that thing. Good.